previously on the Outside of Sunday podcast.
He said he first thought that the rifle had misfired. Kurt was behind him and said, "You've been shot, you've been shot." It's obviously through the whole journey we were trying to see when is the right time for the children to see him. And we were almost at that point, but then he went back in ICU. So it was a bit of a back and forth, but once eventually we felt, okay, he's okay now, we can bring him in. It was a tough decision to make because he was in ICU, and ICU's an incredibly scary place.
Hey, you're listening to the Outside of Sunday podcast. I'm Krista, and here you'll find genuine conversations and inspiring testimonies, as well as biblical encouragement on how to live your faith in and outside of Sunday.
And where Russell's bed was, you had to walk past all the other patients. So he was extubated, so he wasn't on the ventilator during that time. But there were lots of other patients who were. So
tubes coming out everywhere.
Yeah. So when bringing in the children, and I tried to prepare them kind of as much as possible, they were very nervous, and you can see it on the videos as well. They didn't know if they could touch him. They didn't know what to do. And when Caleb actually came around the side, and it was because they had inserted a metal bar into Russell's arm to give it some stability, when he saw that, he just burst into tears, just sobbed. And I just felt the 3 weeks had been so heavy on him, and it was just this release. I feel like a bit of relief, like daddy's talking, daddy's okay.
Yeah.
But it was just this, I don't know if it was maybe the first time he actually broke down crying. To be honest, Russell wasn't sound of mind at that time. He was still very confused. So conversations weren't really normal and easy during that time. But Taya was like, "Oh, yeah, daddy's good. Oh, yeah, this is good, daddy," straight back into well, this is what you've missed. And the staff, they were just so incredible. There was a charge nurse of the ICU. So they're kind of just, they manage all the nurses there, and she's got young children. And she just came over and was just so kind, and she was showing them pictures of her lamb, and then she went and found colouring things for them. So they sat in ICU colouring, and yeah, so it was a bit of a, it was uneasy. I didn't feel great about putting them there through ICU, but it was important for them to see that daddy is okay.
Yeah.
When walking out of ICU, there's this beautiful wall of hope. I just loved what it said on there, but it just really encourages families who have people in ICU. And it's got photos of other people and what their journey has looked like. And there's one of this one guy, a kind of youngish guy, and one of the photos is of him fully ventilated, pipes and everything. And Caleb kind of stopped and looked at this picture for a long time. And I'd said to him, "How does that make you feel, seeing that?" And he's like, "It scares me, Mommy." And I was like, "I know, it scared me too. But what I need you to understand is that pipe is helping him breathe. That one is helping to do this." And I tried my best to say, I know it looks scary, but these are life-saving. These are important, and they've helped us to try and change that perspective of this is a negative thing to actually this is really good,
You've done such an amazing, I feel like you've handled that with your children exceptionally well, especially because there's nothing really to prepare you for that kind of news. There's nothing really to prepare you for how do you talk to your children about it? How do we navigate ICU? Those aren't the books that you're reading when you're just hanging out with your kids, living your best life. But man, you've really handled that exceptionally well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's tough. You never know, and that's, I think you've got to be kind to yourself and just take it step by step and just read off them. Yeah. Moving on from that with Caleb, it had quite an impact on him, unfortunately. We actually saw even just with his bowel functions, we started having problems, so that was him, his anxiety and stress coming out like that.
Yeah.
Taya she was pretty good. she was definitely way more emotional.
Oh,
All girls are quite emotional, but when she came and saw me, because now they're spending a week with our church family, and then they would come on generally on a Thursday and spend Thursday, Friday, Saturday with me. So they've missed me. They haven't been with me the whole week. They haven't been with Daddy. They're in different homes. So by the time they got to me, I felt like she had just kept up all her emotions. It was like a double whammy.
oh, I know. It's like when they come home from school, the little ones. I've put on my best behavior all day for the teacher. I've been great with my friends. Mum's here. Like everything just
Oh my goodness,
falls apart.
it was challenging, and I mean, for myself, I felt like I was hanging by a thread and just so exhausted.
Must be really challenging.
Yeah, but she just kind of went on, and she was so happy. She's very much, I've always called her the glue of our family. She loves her family, and she just wants everyone together. And it was so important for her to keep coming. So she, even one weekend, Caleb didn't come, but she drove back on the Saturday and the Sunday. She came twice, just to spend a bit of time.
And is it Nicole who's bringing her back and forth for you?
Just our whole church group. So our closest friends form part of our Connect group, so like our small group or home group. And so it's ourselves and 4 other families, and we've all got children between the ages of 5 and 10.
Yep.
They just took our kids in, and they took turns each week. The children would go to family, and they took on everything to do with the children. They took them to school, and that wasn't easy because they're all based in Papamoa, so they were driving to Bethlehem, where we are, which is about, probably with no traffic, 20 minutes, but then with traffic, and fetching them and just managing all of that with the children to try and give them a stable, normal life as much as possible.
And that is such great community.
Yeah.
That is what it's about. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
So during this season, how long was it with you and your children were kind of apart?
So we got back. So his accident was the 3rd of August. We were sent back to Tauranga on the 16th of September.
Okay.
So more than 40 days of...
Okay, separation there. And I would really like to know what was going on with you as you are staying at this lovely family's home, going to see Russell. What is your relationship with the Lord doing? Are you able to spend time in prayer, or is it too hard? Are you able to spend time in your word, or are you overwhelmed? What's happening there?
It was so hard, being by myself. It was extremely challenging, and that was our situation, with being in a separate city, This was also hard. But reflecting on it now, 100% I know that God was like, yeah, this is, it was being thrown into the wilderness. I felt this time of where I really needed to go through a refining process. And I was, I just did not give up. I was so intentional within spending time with him. And there were often days where I didn't have the energy or courage to go back. And I would just spend the whole day in his word. And people that sent us verses, so the one prominent verse was Isaiah 41 verse 10, which talks about do not fear, and God will hold you up with a victorious right hand. And from the beginning, I felt God was saying to me that Russell's going to have the victorious right hand.
Was it his right arm?
It was his right arm. And, I was like, I've actually never heard a verse that talks about a right arm. So I felt that. But I spent a lot of time then, when people send verses, seeing the context, where does it come from, what's going on around that. And I
so important.
Spent a long time just studying that. And, then even later on, it talks about how I am holding your right hand. Wow. And then it goes to talk about how I'm going to mold you into this thrashing new instrument. And I just felt like God is busy refining Russell. Like, all of this that he's going through, he's weeding him out. He is refining him in everything, as well as me. Like, he's literally redesigning us for this new season. Wow. And so I did a lot of that. To be honest, any spare moments, I had. I just wanted to be near to him, and
To the Lord.
to the Lord,
Yeah.
because I knew he was our strength, and so many times through it, he was all I had. Definitely challenging times when my faith would be shaky, and I'd be, he had many cardiac problems where his heart was stopping. And the one day I was just so, I was like, this is so much. And I just called Nicole. And that's the amazing thing about, when you receive prophecy and promises and visions, I was like, now you need to give me that one. I was like, Nicole, here, give it to me. Tell me, and she would share it with me, and she would just bring me back up, and put me on my path. There's just been so many other women in my life that have been like my spiritual moms. And in really dark times, then I would just be like, I'm lost, help me. And they would just be like, right, Psalm 91, you've got this. So it was an amazing time of me drawing so close to him, like literally giving over everything, because it wasn't just Russell, it was my kids, it was everything, it was my whole life. My life went in a split second out of my own control, and I just had to lean on him. So he was so near and so close, and I felt him reaching out to me. Actually, before Russell's reconstruction, while I was sitting next to Russell at his bedside, before they wheeled him in, another lady from church had this dream, and she was like, I think this is about you. And it was about, so I'm not a swimmer. I'm yet to swim in New Zealand's oceans. And she's like, you were at the beach. I was like, oh, yeah, no, that doesn't happen. But you were swimming away from the beach. And I was like, this sounds like a nightmare. And there was a fishing net and a fishing boat, and you were trying to swim away from it, but then you got caught up, and you were so tangled in this net, and that you couldn't move, like you were completely restrained. But you realized that all you could do was hold your head up, and that would keep you afloat. And when you looked up, there was a fisherman, and he was trying to reel me in and get to me, and he's saying, I'm coming, Liezl, I'm coming to get you. And I just, like, that was God just saying, hold on, I'm here, I'm coming to get you, I've got you. Because that reconstruction was extremely scary. It was a massive surgery, and his heart was giving us problems, and I was just like, oh, what are we going to do? But yeah, and he was so faithful in giving me those signs and wonders. I'm very much the type that, I look for him. I'm like, where are you? And the one day I just felt someone had sent me a word of, you're going to experience God's joy, and you're going to know it's the joy of the Lord. And I actually was laughing because Russell had many digestive problems, and we had gotten to the point where he was passing bowels again.
Joy!
And it was a massive victory, I mean, you and I was just laughing because I was like, I never thought I would be joyful about passing bowels, and I just was like, this is the joy of the Lord, like. And then I was driving, and I saw a number plate, and it said, I am joy, and I was like, yes, this is the joy of the Lord, like.
So good. Yeah.
So he was just everywhere. So the deeper I seeked him, the more he was revealing himself, the more my eyes opened. I believe he is revealing himself, but we just sometimes miss it. And
I love that. Yeah.
through the people he sent to me, he was just everywhere. And that comfort, even with the verses, again, the one day I can just remember I was so lost and just so, I don't know what to do. And then I got an email from the school, and it was about some course or something, which I wouldn't normally open, especially in that time, because I was not even thinking about schooling. And there was Russell's verse to start off this email, Isaiah 41 verse 10. And I was like, oh, he's just speaking so clearly, like when you can hear his voice. So it was an amazing time of growth for me, just knowing that I need to rely on him.
Yeah. And something that you said earlier was about being refined. Can you just explain a little bit more about that for people listening who are like, wait a minute, what does this mean? Did God then cause this accident for Russell so that he could refine you guys? And isn't that awful? You know, like, what is your, I suppose, theology about that?
You know, definitely, I think the process of refining is really where you build up your strength, where he equips you for what's to come. You know, I feel like we were equipped before for this, but I feel like the process and that we were going through now was really equipping us more for what's next. You know, I think even bringing up things for me from my past that I needed to deal with and face, you know, just pulling out those weeds and just really equipping me for the next season. And that, you know, it sounds quite crazy because it was such a dark time, but I had this real excitement in me as well, because I was like, I know the enemy is trying to do something here, and he's trying to, you know, just destroy us. But I know God's going to come. Like, I know God's going to come and use this for good. So what is that going to look like? Lord, what are you, I asked him all the time, Lord, what are you doing here? So I think just really a process of calling you for who you are to be in him.
It reminds me of like, and I'm sorry if this sounds kind of crude, but like, it reminds me of like an army boot camp.
Yeah.
So most people, you know, I've never been in the army, but I know a little bit about it. So when you join the army or you join the Marines or whatever, you go on a boot camp, right? And it's 6 weeks or something like that of intense training. And basically anybody could become a soldier. Anybody could become like a Marine if you can make it through the boot camp. And it's almost like, even though God, and this is what I just want to make clear to people, God did not cause that accident. God, you've seen already so much of the good that God has brought, like the fact that it didn't hit his vital organs, that it hit in his liver, which can be regenerated. All of these little miraculous small things, like, I think that's what we sometimes forget. Like, sometimes we want the big miracle, like just amazing big miracle to happen. But all of these little miracles are sometimes just as important. And if God had done like some big miracle, and I don't know if this is right to go there, but if God had like miraculously, you're in the helicopter, Russell's in the helicopter, and then all of a sudden there's no injury anymore and he's miraculously healed, you wouldn't have had this boot camp time. Does that sound awful? Or do you feel any of that?
I feel like it was necessary. And even with Russell's process, when we kept getting bad news, Will also said, you know, Russell, there's more. God is working in him now. You know, he's doing things and he's working things, and it's just trusting the process the whole time, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so good. And so you said that it was in September that you guys finally got to come home. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, yeah. It was so rapid. Honestly, it's like, so, he spent 26 days in ICU. He had in total 13 operations. And by the time we left Tauranga, I think it was about 44 days. So, 44 days, 13 operations is actually quite short. And if you think 26 of those days, he was extremely critical with his abdomen wide open. So his healing after that was so rapid. And then it was the miracle work of fixing this arm. So he had that massive reconstruction surgery, and then he had to have another 2 after that to do some more work.
Because we haven't brought this up, but there was potential for his arm to be amputated.
Yeah. When he first arrived, it was more likely that it was going to be amputated. And in his initial first surgery, when they first saw the arm, I saw on his papers that the doctor was Dr. Tan, and he was Russell's lead plastic surgeon through it all. He doesn't normally work on a Saturday, but he was there that Saturday, so he was in that surgery. And I do believe he was the one that possibly said, no, I can fix it, because there was this massive muscle loss. So they had to somehow find muscle to replace in here, as well as looking at how they're going to get it to work with all the tendons rewiring.
So complex. So
complex. So that surgery was just phenomenal, massive. It was huge, just babysitting this muscle flap, which they had taken and removed from his lat. So if you look down the side of Russell now, he's got a really long scar. He didn't even know it was there. I said to him, I was like, whoa, babe, look at that scar. And he was like, what's that? No, they've taken his whole lat and implanted in here, and it moves and it beats.
That is so...
The first time I saw it, I was like, I could tell, because he's really tanned. And this piece was just so white. I was like, I could just see that's not your arm.
What is your back doing there?
But that was just, such a creative miracle. But then he just, because he wasn't even eating, like we went through the whole digestive thing. So we started off with eating. His eating increased. He had to learn how to walk again because he had been bedridden for so long. And in the process lost 25 kgs. So all muscle was just gone.
Yeah.
But he just so quickly, just got back on his feet, and he was really determined. And what was happening was Taya's birthday was the 20th of September. And I was like, I don't know, how are we going to get that right, but we know we serve the God of the impossible. And we had shared with the team that, yes, it's our daughter's birthday coming up, and they were so kind and gracious to they're like, we're going to make this happen for you guys, And one day they just came to us and they're like, we think it's time for you to transfer. And that news was golden. It's like, oh my goodness. We've been living in Hamilton. I hardly know Hamilton, but now I know it really well. And it's like, you can go home. Wow. And they just arranged it so quickly, but also so wisely. They were amazing with that handover to Tauranga, just making sure the care then would be just amazing. And we got to Tauranga, which was so good as well. And 3 days later, the 19th, they discharged him. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was amazing.
The day before Taya's birthday.
Day before. And the kids didn't know that we had been transferred. We got there actually in the night to Tauranga, and then the next day after school, I just rocked up at school and surprised them, and they had no idea I was there. And I was like, Daddy's home.
Daddy's home.
He's in Tauranga at least. And I took them to the hospital, and they were just like, oh my goodness. And then Caleb was doing his school asked me if I wanted to sign him up to do the Seasons course. Which is an emotional literacy type course. They felt it would be good for him during this time. So he was busy doing that when Russell got discharged. And so we were waiting for him outside of his classroom. And we were caught a little bit by surprise because I was trying to record it, but he wasn't in the classroom. He actually came running from the side and he was like, oh, Daddy. And the Seasons teacher said, we've literally just prayed that Daddy will come out of hospital, and here you're standing. She was just bawling her eyes. She's like, this is amazing. That is amazing. So special. And our whole church group, because how do I arrange a birthday party? I've been living somewhere else, and they just arranged this beautiful party. We actually celebrated twice on her birthday, and then she was very adamant to have games, pass the parcel and all of that. So they came the next day again, and we just celebrated as a family.
Wow. And that was her 5-year-old birthday?
That was her 5th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah, so it's been amazing for the kids because I feel like my words to Caleb's teacher, because I spoke to her the Sunday just after the accident, and I was like, I just want this to be a testimony to my own children, that they know, they can lean on Jesus in those hard times. And
love that.
And it has.
And how's Russell's functionality? Is he walking around? Is he
my goodness,
able-bodied? Can he use his arm?
Oh, it's incredible. You would not know. When you look at him now, he looks like Russell. Even his weight gain, he looks pretty much back to what he is. And he's pretty much like he normally was. And this was only 4 months ago. His arm is increasing with movement by the day. So he goes for weekly hand therapy because his biggest challenge with the hands and fingers is because they've rewired tendons. So he's got to rethink on how he moves things. So, so the thumb, to move his thumb, I think, is this movement before. So he's got to think he's doing that to be able to move the thumb.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a computer program where like the number one button now controls enter instead of number one. Wow.
Exactly. And to do that, I think it's this movement.
So in his brain, he has to think something different in order to operate his hand.
Yep.
Wild. Wow.
Yeah.
Can he drive?
He can. He's not supposed to be, but he is. No, but it's
Edit that out. No.
So no, the reason why is ACC is going to put a special device on our steering wheel to be able to.
So he's not breaking the law.
No, technically he's not, because he's
Okay,
not 6
we'll keep
weeks.
that part in then.
He's not 6 weeks post-op.
Okay.
So he is allowed to drive. So he's just at full function, and he's totally working around his restrictions. And I see him using his teeth, his feet more creatively. But every day it's increasing with strength. And so many people have said, we're just believing for that full restoration. And we got that word the whole time through the journey of just weaving back together. Like, God does a perfect job.
Yeah.
So we're believing that for him. And when times get tough, because he has some days.
I can imagine it'll be very frustrating.
Because he's such a handy man. He does sometimes go in those dips, and I just, I'll touch his arm and I'll say, I love this arm. This arm saved your life. Because if that bullet had not gone through that arm, he wouldn't be with us. So I'm like, this arm, I love this arm. This arm saved your life. And it's going to get healed, and it's still here because he doesn't know how close it was to not almost being here.
Yeah, I think there's so much to be thankful for. So much to be thankful for.
Yeah.
Well, I'd really like to talk now. I mean, I feel like I'm just so happy for you guys that you are now on the other side of this, and how you are, like I said at the beginning, so willing to share this. It's so fresh.
Yeah.
So thank you. But something else I feel like we only heard a little bit about was what's going on in terms of the police, the shooter. I know you said that what was his friend's name? Russell's friend. Kurt and the shooter had to go and give police statements. What is happening in terms of that?
Yeah, so we, through the journey, we didn't have too much, which was also really nice. They were very respectful.
The police were?
Yeah, about when is the right time to talk about this. They were amazing, and Russell gave a statement while in hospital, and he was in a kind of sound mind. And Russell was able to recall all those moments. And now moving forward, we actually approached them and we said we're in a good place now, and they've asked us. So they've told us kind of what sentence is more than likely going to be given to the guy. We haven't had any contact with him ourselves through this. I think the police were actually updating him.
Okay.
And they've said to us before we proceed any further, they want us to take some time to have a think about what are our feelings on this and this happening to us and the outcomes and how is it going to affect our lives moving on from here. So they just wanted to give us that time. But to be honest, Russell and I had already spoken about all of this beforehand, and we just, through the journey and before I'd even spoken to Russell, because I had gotten word that Russell was praying with this guy, and praying for his forgiveness. And it just hit me, and I was like, I know the kind of man that Russell is as well, that, my gut feeling was telling me that he's not going to want anything bad to happen to this person. And so that's why we were very protective over the story, even going to the media and stuff, because we just wanted to, there's someone else's life here. Yes, we are the ones here in the hospital, but there is also someone else's
Somebody
life.
else is greatly affected, yeah.
Yeah. So we've just decided now moving forward that we're going to stay with that stance. Russell still feels so strongly, he's forgiven this guy. It was 100%, it was an accident. Yes, it was an awful accident. And, even now when I speak with people, it's like, oh, but this, Liezl, this, why not this? And,
Meaning like you should feel
yes.
the opposite.
Yes, and they feel it, they feel, you should actually rather put your foot down, which is quite hard.
Make him pay in a way.
Yes. Quite hard to say to others, but no, actually we don't. And when you ask us, and genuinely, we don't have any anger or in us. It's amazing. It's almost like God's just taken that away. No matter how deep we look for it, we don't have that in us. And we've really thought about it hard, and we feel, the devil tried to do something here. The devil tried to, with us. And where it says, don't repay evil with evil, we just don't want to be a part of that. And we have full faith that the judge will make the right call with whatever that is. But with our feelings and passing that on to them now, there's a good chance that he won't be imprisoned. Yeah. And the opportunity will probably come up where we might have to have a reconciliation meeting with him. And I look forward to that. Number one, because I want to thank him. I feel in that moment he had a choice that he could have run and, tried to get away from this. But he had a choice, and he came forward. And if he wasn't there, he wouldn't have been able to help stop the bleeding. So the outcome could have been worse. Yeah.
That's incredible. Not many people, I think very few people would ever be able to say, I want to be able to thank the man who shot my husband.
I know it sounds weird. It does. I even when I say it out loud, I'm like, it sounds weird. But yes, he was part of causing it, but he was also part of saving it, Russell, as well. And we don't know him at all. We have no idea what his journey is, what's his relationship like with the Lord. What if this is his, the opportunity that God's trying to use to get to him? We don't want to get in the way of that. Maybe we can use this to let the Lord get to him. And we know that God is omniscient and knows exactly what happened in the moment. We don't. I don't think he probably even knows himself because it was so traumatic.
Yeah.
But God's the only one that knows what was happening in his heart, what happened at that right moment. So who are we to judge him for that?
Wow.
So
I think that's just so amazing, Liezl. You didn't say the words, but it's like you have love for this man.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's oversaying it, but you're concerned about his salvation, you're concerned about his relationship with the Lord, you're concerned about his future, about him not ending up in prison, which is a horrible place, well, especially in, it's tricky. I was about to say an innocent man, but it's like, he still did something, so I think you're amazing, and I think your heart for him in all of this is incredible, really.
Yeah. And honestly, Russ, we're just normal people. We really are, and so that's only by God's grace. It's only, I feel like I've pictured this in life before. I don't know, if you think about when you watch those doctor movies and stuff, when you get that bad news,
what would I do? How would I
do if I was faced with someone who's killed or, someone in my family? I feel like I've thought about this before, and my feelings then before were very different or confused. But yeah, and I think a big part of it is also, as Christians, we know that by forgiving, we're releasing ourselves. We don't want to have that bitterness eating up inside of us. So it's such an important thing for ourselves to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, when Jesus taught his disciples how to pray, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us, God is so gracious to forgive us our sins. Can we forgive others when they've sinned against us?
Yeah.
And I think you guys are like peak example right now of how to actually live those words and to pray that prayer and actually mean it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with all of that, there aren't many people who've been through what you've been through. I mean, the forgiveness element is one side of it, and I think that's all credit to your relationship with the Lord. And then there's obviously the trauma that you have gone through. It was really a blindside. And I think none of us can prepare for that, but many of us may have to go through something similar to that. Looking back now on all that you went through, what is some advice that you give to us, people who perhaps haven't experienced massive trauma, who may one day, people who are perhaps going through it right now?
I think it boils down to your foundation. If you build your foundation on a rock, you can withstand it. If it's on sand, you're going to sink. It's tough, it's hard, and it's a roller coaster as well. But if you've got that strong foundation and you know where your eyes are looking and you're keeping your eyes on Him, that's what's going to get you through it. As well as ensuring that who's surrounding you is joining you in faith and in that belief and believing also for that miracle. A lot of, the story of the paralyzed man that was lifted into Jesus through the roof, it was the friends that brought him to the miracle. And that's a massive part of how we live our faith, is we just do life with like-minded people, and they carried us through it. There was many times where I couldn't myself anymore. I was just exhausted, but then they came and they took that space. They filled the gap for me. So it's a huge part. Just having people say nope and just get you back on that track.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great part about your story as well, is the way that the body of Christ really just met you there. I'd love to actually know, what were some of the most helpful things that people did? Because if trauma doesn't affect me, it might affect somebody that I know. And how can I be helpful in a practical way, but also in a spiritual way, an emotional way?
There was a lot of people that looked for things that weren't obvious. That was extremely helpful. So because I was in just this survival mode, and I had Nicole managing our life, and she really kind of tried to protect us because I just couldn't, so just with people seeing a need and just filling it without us having to ask, like the simple example of our garden. We rent a home, so, we need to keep the gardens all tidy, and just people without coming to me as well. So, they weren't seeking the recognition from me, and the praise for doing it. They just, on their own, they organized it quietly and they just got it done. Helping with buying groceries for the families that were looking after our children, because obviously that's a massive extra financial burden taking on two little ones, and buying them all groceries for their lunch boxes, and without coming to me like that. That I really appreciated, how people just, it was all on the outside, they gave me that space to just focus on what Russell was going through, and they just organized everything on the outside. But with regards to on a spiritual level, I saw so many people rise through this, and that was so incredible for me to be like the one here and just seeing it all just come like together. One day I got a real kick in my spirit where I was like, yeah, devil, you see, look at that, look at them now. I was like, yeah, you thought this was going to be bad, now your army's like, our army is even bigger, because people just got so, their faith and their passion in praying, they were so committed. And we were quite purposeful with our prayer, where I created a WhatsApp group, but only I and Nicole could post, because we didn't want it to be a place of, people talking and communicating. It was just being very purposeful and intentional with what prayer requests, very specific, because I wanted it to be a testimony to like our families and our friends who are non-believers but are part of the group, of how we pray into specific little things, and then we see that praise reports come through. And I just saw people's faith just grow and grow, and giftings as well. The prophetic word that we got after our testimony was from Ryan, and it was through this time where he's just risen to the occasion. And many years ago, he got a prophecy that he would have a tongue of gold, and you want to, the amount that is coming out of him now is just incredible. So seeing people called into their giftings through this, it's just amazing. Like, so amazing. So with helping us, definitely, I think when people are going through trauma and they ask for prayer and things, you're not sure how much to give. But I almost want to say to everyone, just don't hold back at all, because there was so many times that verses, I read every single one, and to Russell, I asked for videos and people would pray with us over videos, and it was always at the right time, like that we just needed that encouragement. The one day was in a very, I was waiting for a surgery. There was so much waiting time, and this one guy, I've never met him, from Russell's works, parents in South Africa, they sent through this prayer, a voice message. So I've never met them, and it was all in Afrikaans, and it was just so powerful. But man, they got me in that moment. I was literally sitting in the dark, waiting for news about Russell, and they just got me fired up again. So it's just how can you fool someone? And yeah, I think also another thing is giving people the space as well. That was important for us. For us personally, we're quite private people, so having people kind of respect that and not overwhelm us with how they handled it, that was extremely helpful, because there was times when people were coming in and just because they wanted to be, but that was extremely hard as well, because you're dealing with so much emotion yourself, your own emotions. 1 minute we're like scared because his heart is doing this, then the next minute his tubes are out and we're celebrating that he's having an ice block. So your emotions is doing this. So other people's emotions are really tough. If someone said to me, "Oh, that makes me worried about him," I was like, "Oh, don't say that," because then it almost goes double in my spirit. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, there's one last question that I like to ask everybody who comes on the podcast, and I'll just put it to you to answer however you feel led and however you feel would bless the people listening. But that is, how do you live your faith outside of Sunday, Liezl?
Well, I would definitely say, just with what you would see through our journey, is we just do life with our church family. If I look at what my life looks like beyond a Sunday, it's just full of my church family. They are our family. If we've got any struggles or problems, we're right on to our prayer request group, or you're struggling, your child is sick and this, or I need help, can someone go and pick up this? It's our church group, and we just do life together, and those are the friends that they'll bring you up. They're those friends that will carry you to Jesus when you need to. And it's probably the place where I've grown the most as well, in our Connect group, our small group, because we'll always focus on the previous sermon, and we all go around and we share what did we get from that, and the amount of growth we've had just in that small group has just been, wow, amazing. So I feel like it's just really doing life with our church group. And for Russell and I, our marriage it's hugely different to what it was before the accident.
How so?
Oh, it's just, I think from his side, I think seeing your wife fight for you the way I fought for him, he just
So sweet.
no, he just burst into tears the one day, because I was there every minute. I was like, I'm gonna fight for my man. I'm not going home without him.
Yeah.
He's coming home with me, and he just burst into tears, sobbing like a little baby, like just thank you, and I think it awoke in him like, this lady's going to fight for me, So now our relationship's just massively changed, and as well as with our journey with the Lord, because I think we've really become united. We've realized how important it is for him and I to unite spiritually for our family. So our journey before, our faith was very much separate, but we've become so much more united. We're very intentional now with spending time in prayer together.
I love that.
And spending time in the Word together, praying for our kids together.
Oh, I love that.
We've just realized the power and the necessity of it now, which is just drawing us even closer. So, I feel like, the devil was really trying to separate us. He saw a key opportunity. But I feel we've just come out so much stronger from all of this.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Liezl. This has just blessed me, and I just think you're amazing. So thank you so much. And thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Outsider Sunday podcast. We have some exciting news. We're starting a monthly giveaway for our Outsider community. And all you have to do is let us know your favorite moment from this episode. Any thoughts that you had, a Bible verse that might have come to mind, a personal experience that you can relate to from this episode. And you will automatically go in the draw for this monthly giveaway. See, we want you to be a part of this podcast too. Please let us know your thoughts and insights in the comments. And you never know, your comment could be included in a future episode of this podcast or you could be our monthly winner. Thank you so much for your support of this ministry, and don't forget to let somebody you know about this podcast. Outside of Sunday is part of the Outsider Network and is made with the help of Inspirational Media.